Irving, we can only see your head.
Well, that's where it counts.
That's right. That's where the brain pack is. Yeah. All right,
How are
guys.
you,
Well,
Matthew? Long time no see.
Well, I've been fighting crime and suppressing evil and the usual.
Oh, as long as you're not creating crime and
Well,
evil, then we're
that's
all right.
that's a matter of opinion from your former colleagues.
Well, I don't know. I'm not that often in contact with them, so I can't say.
all right, guys. Welcome to the May 2025 meeting of the PRC. It's a good turnout, so that's nice to see. So thank you, everybody, for being here. This is going to be, I presume, our last meeting that doesn't have any parliamentary activity on it. It's been 4 months now since we've had any. So we will be seeing some more activity in our next meeting, and that's obviously a good thing. So in any event, we're recording, so that's great. We have two regrets. Howard can't make it, but he still plans to return, so we're looking forward to that. And Stefan couldn't make it today, and those are all the regrets I have. Um, as far as moving forward on the agenda, can I have a motion then to accept the agenda as circulated? Okay, Matthew, and seconded by Peter. Thanks very much. Everybody is going to approve. News and announcements. So obviously the big news since our last meeting is the election of the new or the continuation of the Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Liberal government, which is still struggling to make it to a majority, but I don't think that's very likely unless he can talk some NDP people to cross the floor, which apparently is actively being pursued. But that's what a minority government is going to want to do. And we have a new cabinet. So the list of the cabinet members just came out today. So Howard sent it. So I appreciate that from Howard. He sent it to myself and to Irving. I don't have it in front of me, although I can tell you for our purposes, the new Minister of Justice, the Attorney General, is Sean Fraser. And again, he also has another portfolio. It's a regional kind of thing. I can't understand why that would happen because I would think his original portfolio of justice is pretty large on its own right. The Minister of Public Safety, unfortunately, I can't pronounce the gentleman's name. He was the former Minister of Justice for about 3 weeks while the campaign was underway. So those are the two people we'll be corresponding with for the most part, dealing with issues that affect us. Does anybody have any other comments about the constitution of the cabinet? What have you, Matthew?
Well, I want to breathe a sigh of relief because had Polyev been elected as a majority prime minister, we would have been on a building campaign to build new federal penitentiaries. I mean, CCJA dodged a huge bullet. On top of that, Polyev would have been an individual who could have easily defunded the association's subsidy grant.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And hopefully that wouldn't have happened. We don't have to worry about it now, at least for the time being. But we mentioned this a couple times in previous meetings. If the Conservatives, had been elected, we were going to be very busy. There was going to be a lot of things that we very much probably would have objected to. Brennan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, it helps me so I don't interrupt anybody
Yeah,
by
no problem.
mistake. Two things. So yeah, I think it's pronounced for the new Minister for Public Safety. I think it's Gary is Anandasangari, I think is how you pronounce it. He was
Yeah.
also the minister. I don't know if it was either for Cernak or ISC. So it was one of the indigenous portfolios. I just forget which one he was in. So he was there before he was in that 3 month stint at Justice. I don't know a whole lot about him, though I know he's a lawyer and I know that when he appeared at the AFN in his role as minister for one of the indigenous departments, he it didn't appear he seemed quite unprepared. So between us, I'm a little afraid of how he'll do in the public safety portfolio, but we'll have to wait and see. The other thing I wanted to mention, just comments on the new cabinet. I saw that as I'm sure most of you are aware, they did the Secretary of State thing. There's a Secretary of State for combating crime, which is kind of interesting. I'm curious to see how that's going to play in with public safety and or justice. I'd say there seems to be some overlap in some of the secretaries of state and the ministers and who's going to do what. So it'll be interesting to see that interplay between this new secretary of state for combating crime.
And who is that, Brennan?
That is I just had Ruby Sahota. The name sounds very familiar. Is that a Toronto MP? Toronto area
Uh,
MP?
yeah, I think it's a 905 or maybe Toronto, but yeah, I recognize the name.
Somewhere in there, Southern Ontario.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, they're all going to get mandate letters, and I presume the Secretary of State will get mandate letters as well. They are members of the cabinet, so that'd be interesting
Yeah.
to see what the mandate letter is.
Well, I
based
hope they share the mandate letters.
Oh,
Hopefully,
I
Carney
can't imagine why they
continues with
wouldn't.
that.
Yeah, but you don't have to.
Well,
But
I mean, didn't Trudeau not release mandate letters? Like, didn't the last mandate letters Trudeau release in 2021, even though he changed cabinet several times? And there was it 2021? I remember it being a while despite cabinet changing.
well, let me just see now. I mean, I'm pretty sure he issued mandate letters in 2021. I know that the Minister of Justice had one. But and then when that position changed to Varani, I'm not sure if he actually received one. I don't know
Yeah.
if he stepped in when the previous Minister of Justice was fired, essentially, which was a shame too. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know if Varani had one. I don't remember seeing one, but I would think Carney would issue them. They're a good idea. It gives
Yeah.
everybody a clear roadway on what they're expected to be doing, and lets us know what we should be looking for. So I think hopefully that's a good thing. Anybody else have any
Agreed.
other comments on the new cabinet?
Yeah, it's just that just picking up on what Matthew said about Mr. Polyev, he's going to have an interesting time as he battles here in Alberta because the party that loaded up his ballot in Ontario is also in the process of loading up his ballot here in Alberta, which is a very interesting thing. And also, it's going to put him into, it's going to put all the conservatives in a real quandary with our Queen's latest pronouncement about separatism, etc. And so that is something that really needs to be watched because that will have probably some fairly significant issues surrounding it, and we'll sort of see if Mr. Polyev, continues with his bravado statements or not. And this sounds like I'm very much liberal. Actually, for the first time, I admit in public, I did vote liberal. Just to let you know.
Okay.
It was a protest vote, Matthew. Protest vote.
Peter, Peter, have you solved the Alberta problem of the old treaty agreements between First Nations who are arguing, and I don't know if this is correct, they're arguing that Alberta cannot succeed without their permission.
I actually, that's maybe off to one side, but that is a huge issue going on out here. And actually, a lot of people, at least in my circles, have applauded the First Nations chiefs for speaking out. It's interesting the response back to them from the to the right side of politics has been basically, no, you've got no say in this. Doesn't really matter what you say, which is actually very interesting when you consider that in terms of being tone deaf in this day and age about Indigenous rights and freedoms, to come out and say, it doesn't really matter what you have to say. We're going to go on and do it, which is probably why we still have so many Indigenous persons overrepresented in the prison system. Because of that type of attitude. So that's my editorial comment on that, Matthew.
Oh, good. Appreciate it. Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, anything else? I can tell you that at least on my calendar, it looks like Parliament resumes on the 26th, which is a week from this Monday coming up. Maybe off a day or two, but that's the idea. So again, committees will be struck and Parliament will start sitting, and so we should have some activity to report on for our next meeting. I don't know if there'll be much of it, and I don't know whether we'd actually have any bills introduced before our next meeting, but because that's going to take some time to get the committee work going and members to put them forward. But we'll see. I mean, and I imagine, and I'm just guessing here, but I imagine if there are any bills introduced early in the parliament, it's not going to deal with our issues necessarily. It's going to be economic issues, trade issues, those kind of things that are a real priority. And why Carney was elected to a great degree. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. Moving on, Peter, do you have any, just going down through the news and announcements and the updates, do you have anything with respect to Alberta and policing?
Just very briefly, and thank you. A couple of things. Policing is a mess in Alberta right now. The chief of police for the city of Calgary resigned last week, and immediately thereafter, two of his deputies were walked out, called resignations, and a new interim chief. Actually, she's not an interim chief. She's actually a chief on a one-year contract, which is really fascinating. Katie McClellan used to be a CPS member way back when, went over to the RCMP, and then came back to us. And she's as a deputy, and now she's been moved up to chief. The two people that were let go, the other two deputies, they were both from outside of Calgary. One was from Edmonton, one was from the RCMP that had been brought in by Neufeld. Neufeld's gone and said nothing on his leaving, and they've appointed also a third with the rank of deputy. It's a civilian member, female. Which is great, and so there's a lot of good and two new deputies as well, both of which have phenomenal credibility in policing throughout the province as well as the city. So that part's so good. So we have that going on. You've got Edmonton with its two-headed hydra of a chief, because they couldn't appoint one, they had to appoint two. When the other chief stepped down and moved over to the government, interestingly enough, under Danielle Smith. And then here's the kicker, the Alberta Sheriffs. One more time, the Alberta Provincial Police. We've talked about this before. Bill 49, Alberta Bill 4, not C, just Bill 49 is intended to deal with legislation for the Police Amendment Act to establish its promised Alberta Police Review Commission, set to launch at the end of this year, but the bill hasn't yet been passed. They want to transfer 600 sheriffs over to a new provincial police force, which is really interesting in some respects, because I'm going to find where it has it down here. They want it to be a new agency will be established by regulation as a crown corporation with a board of directors to ensure it operates as an independent policing entity. It's an interesting concept, because the closest thing to that is what we call it here, ALERT, Alberta. Anyways, the response team, Alberta. Can't remember what the L stands for.
Law enforcement, perhaps, Peter?
Yeah, that's it. Law enforcement response team. Thank you very much, Brendan. I love it when Ontario helps Alberta. And that was established as a crown corporation, and actually has been very successful, especially in dealing with a lot of the substance abuse issues, and organized crime issues, guns and gangs, etc. It has been a very effective amalgamation, and it has a number of agencies all involved under this crown corporation. It's sort of an interesting part. And by the way, back in 1993, as I was reminded recently, I was actually helped to found that organization on a special study that was done. So right now, the sheriff's department got blindsided. They did not see this coming. The administration and the union, because they're under CUPE. And so the obvious questions are, what sort of additional training will they need to move them from being sheriffs, which have a very specific role, into being full police officers, not peace officers. They already are that. There's some fascinating things as well, such as polygraph. Sheriffs are not polygraphed. All police officers in Alberta are polygraphed, with the exception of the RCMP now. But I'm talking about those directly under the Police Act. It's a must. You have to be. There's a 30% um, uh, failure rate per se among those that get polygraphs. So, like out of 100, 30 people don't get past the polygraph, and of the 10, they're basically banned for life from ever because they disclose things that they had lied about before. So you've got, I would say, 30% is a relatively high number for people going into a job that requires such ethics and focus on law. So sheriffs aren't polygraphed. So the question is, do we now grandfather them in, which really opens up a huge kettle of fish? Because I'm very sure that some of them shouldn't be there. And that's been said by a lot of people. And what about a police officer now working with an old sheriff, but as a police officer? So this and the training that's involved. At least they're both physically fit, supposedly, as they get started. One having PAIR and one having APREP as the two physical fitness tests. That at least the Alberta still has in place, which is probably good. So it's basically, I just wanted to bring you up to date because it's a wait and see. Things are in a real state of flux here, in my opinion. And that seems to be shared by a lot of other people on the job. The one good thing is that morale, at least in the city of Calgary, is starting to have an instant uptake as a result of the changes. So that's good. And being a retired member, I feel really good about that. Again, and then the other thing too is that that new agency under Bill 49 in Alberta, it will also the establishment of the Alberta Police Review Commission will also handle complaints against municipal and First Nations policing services across the province. And we have 3 fully accredited First Nations policing here in Alberta, which actually is really quite something when you look, around the whole country. And they're very good police services, very, very community-based police, and work well with their counterparts. So that's just the quickie Alberta update. I finished my last class later on afternoon today, and I'll get this actually all written up and get it sent in. I did send Brendan for you, and not exclude other people. It wasn't meant to be that way, but the National Federation of Police, National Police Federation, pardon me, is doing some really high level promotional materials. They're putting it all over the place, saying, the Mounties are the best thing since sliced bread and don't get rid of us. We have a wonderful long history. Well, they've got a long history anyways. So it's really interesting because this is all in relation to the growing movement of replacing the RCMP both as municipal and provincial police. And Grand Prairie is the other place that's has actually started and is doing extremely well in terms of getting recruitment, etc. So that's it from Alberta.
That's great, Peter. Thank you. Any questions or comments, Brendan?
I do have one for you, Peter. I'm actually just curious a little bit about this. Because this story, I mean, professionally and personally, I've been keeping an eye on sort of the development with the policing over in Alberta. Because I think it's a very good idea of with this whole conversation about the place of the RCMP. I mean, in the Alberta specific example, it looks like they're taking the sheriffs that are a recent creation and then sort of rating the sheriffs to make this new body. Is the idea that the sheriffs are going to be like, are they trying to maybe close down the sheriffs and be like, actually, let's do a provincial force? Or are they trying, like, or is the idea we will still try to recruit new sheriffs and for this new police force? I'm not sure about that.
I would suggest the answer is yes, overall to the question. One, the sheriffs are peace officers. And remember, Alberta is unique in that sense because we have the Peace Officer Act and the Police Act as well. So we're the only province that has that as such. Sheriffs are a part of that. And peace officers are also in the municipalities working with them and in the outlying areas, etc. The ones that the thought here that's being put forward is that the sheriffs that are moved to the new Alberta agency. As I said, it would be a crown corporation based on sort of like the alert model from the sounds of it now, which is a little bit different than originally conceived when the whole fair deal documentation came out originally, and that's where the birth of or rebirth of Alberta provincial police came from. So that part's different. So they will still, and on top of that, everybody is poaching on everybody else to get bodies because there's no bodies to be had. So this is another huge issue area. Where do we get it? And for example, Grand Prairie is offering, here's a job for all of us, $25,000 as a sign-up bonus to go to Grand Prairie as a police officer. So if you know anybody who wants to go up there, good hunting and fishing if you're into it. And
Peter, you're not packing, are you?
well, I really had thought of it, but then I thought, no, I'll just go down to Australia instead.
Okay, weather's better.
Weather is better, yeah. So did that help answer, Bren?
Yeah, no, it does. Thanks, Peter. But yeah, like I think you're right that there's only so many bodies, and where
Yeah,
are we gonna find these people?
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks, Brendan. And moving on to the next point, Brendan, you're next up on the agenda. Is there anything else you want to add regarding RCMP and the change in their role?
Uh, not for me for now.
Okay, good enough.
Thank you.
Next, and this comes from Irving, so thank you very much. He sent me an article dealing with Law Commission of Ontario publishing papers on artificial intelligence and criminal justice. So, Irving, do you want to just give us an overview of that?
Well, this is not my area of expertise. It was actually Howard who found it in the Law Times. And the idea is basically how do we prepare for what's happening in terms of artificial intelligence, which is impacting everything, right? Do we want to take a position? Do we want to make a number of suggestions to make sure that the right things happen rather than the wrong things, etc.? So, it's kind of like it's an interesting project. If somebody wants to volunteer and take it on, I'll be happy to assist, but I can't take the lead role on it.
Okay. I included the link to the article in the agenda, so hopefully you guys had a chance to look at it. It's very interesting. I
Yeah.
can when I send out the minutes of this today's meeting to everybody in the PRC and the CCGA, I'll mention that we're looking for somebody to help us with this, so that wouldn't see if
Sure.
we get some interest in that regard. AI is really, I mean, I use it a lot and these days, and I think it's great. But I mean, you have to be careful because it's always a good place to start, but usually not a very good place to end. There's a lot
Exactly.
of things you have to monitor and amend and what have you. What I found really interesting about AI in the criminal justice field is it's in using it for predictability in things like bail applications and parole applications and those kind of things. Because I think for the last 10 years, maybe more, those working in the field for particularly releasing offenders, again, bail or parole or probation for that matter, there's scales and psychological assessment tools that have been used to rank their prospect for success, right? And that's now been potentially overtaken by the use of AI, which would use those same assessment tools, would generate a output faster than it would be under the former tools being used that were pretty much done manually. And that's really interesting because you plug in somebody's information, it's assessed with whatever is inputted into the tool that AI is using to generate its output, and then you get an answer, right? And that's what it will do. It'll give you what would appear to be a well thought out, a reasoned, and legally sustainable decision on whether somebody should be released into the public, whether it's bail or parole or what have you. And then those who are responsible for those decisions, which would be parole officers and what have you, would rely upon that to make decisions. Interesting. It's a fascinating field. It's a good use of AI for what it can do. But the problem is, of course, is that when decisions are made, when you get to the point where you're going to be cross-examining a parole officer, when you're challenging a decision that's made for somebody's release in a court of law, whoever made the decision relying upon AI firstly, how are they going to be cross-examined on how the decision was made? Because it's made, by an entity other than themselves. And how are they going to basically argue that it should be sustained when, again, they aren't the ones that actually made the decision, right? It's all encompassing, and it's good, but it's pretty scary too, right? It's
Well, the
tough.
implications are absolutely enormous. I
Absolutely.
mean, we can't even fathom where this could possibly take us. It's really Brave New World and 1984 combined kind of thing. There's a lot of potential harm. I mean, that's the scariest of all, right?
Yeah, and it's exponential. I mean, it started off with AI, Chat GBT, less than 2 years ago, and now there isn't a company on the planet that doesn't have their own AI developed for their own personal use. Brendan has his hand up, and then Sarah, or maybe just Sarah. Is that Sarah? Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, thanks. No, I did see Brendan's hand up too, but don't see him anymore. I also agree that AI is super scary in the future, and something that I've heard about it too is that it's an amalgamation of everything that's currently available online. So as AI develops in the future and more AI produced information is available online, it will change and become more and more of this like ambiguous AI generated information. So it will, I think, definitely having policies and suggestions involved now to combat that and predict, just prepare for that in the future is going to be really important. I'm definitely interested in getting on board with this project and just kind of doing this research, but I might need help because this would be the first thing that I've thrown myself at in this group. So yeah, I'm happy to be, I was going to say, Irving, I'm happy to assist, but you said that. So I don't know if I can take the lead,
Well,
but
why
I'm
don't you
happy to work as a
Sarah,
team.
why don't you take the lead and I'll help with any which way I can.
Sure. Yeah, that would be great.
And
Yeah,
I'll tag along too, Michelle.
Super.
good, Michelle too. That's great. All right, great. That's great. That's super. Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate you getting involved. Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. And there's eventually they'll turn into a brief that we'll submit to the board, I would think, or not.
Okay.
I mean, it's just. I mean, I would think at some point we may want to take a position on it, depending on what you find.
Well,
Yeah, and what you find, and then we'll promulgate that accordingly. But that's super. Thank you for doing that. Yeah,
Yeah, and thank you.
just sorry, go ahead. Did I
No, go
interrupt
ahead.
somebody? I was just going to say we can't turn the clock back. I mean, it's here. It's doing stuff. Some of the things it can do is almost miraculous if you think a bit. What's important is to make sure that we can find checks and balances in this process. Otherwise, you can lose control of everything, kind of thing, right? I was reading something the other day. I can't remember where it was about how they identified the suspect in a particular crime based on nothing. And they just put a few things into a computer, and boom, they got the guy kind of. And it was better than fingerprinting in a way. So keep your eyes open.
Well, yeah, the other really interesting thing, at least in the practice of law, or any other assessment of the law is just data. That's all it really is. And and the common law system that we have, and that we got from Britain and what have you, is based on stare decisis. And so decisions, you take the fact situation and then you apply the law that's been previously declared, as long as it's at the appropriate level of court, and then it'll determine whether whatever position that the facts are putting forward can be sustained or not at law. And AI is a perfect tool for that. It can research the case law in seconds that would take a lawyer or a law student or whatever a fair number of hours to get to that point. And I know that there was a case last year in the United States where somebody argued a decision that they came up with using AI, but it wasn't a real decision. AI generated a case, with its own facts and whatever. The lawyer got in a lot of trouble like that because the lawyer didn't declare where this case came from, and good on the judge. The judge,
yeah. He created case law.
Yeah. Amazing. Brendan, did you want to still pipe in, and then we have Andrea?
Uh, Sorry, I just had to step away first. I just had a call while you guys were chatting. I had a comment about the AI stuff, but if we've moved on, I can
No, we're
just
still there.
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I apologize if I repeat anything anybody said. But I wanted Miles, I think I just want to, I think the way you put it, where when you said AI is a good place to start, not a good place to end, I completely agree with that. I think several of us are professors here and have seen sort of the work that comes out and all these AI hallucinations and things like that that are very concerning. And if there's not critical thought on how these things work, then that's where we're going to run into trouble. And the idea, like the math behind a lot of these AI models, essentially, it's just mathematical prediction is what it is. So they're more sophisticated, like regressions and things like that. And if I in the perhaps the easiest sense, and basically, if the data going in is this not great or not representative, like if all these predictive tools that they use in parole and things like that are not appropriate, well, then the models, the what AI spits out isn't going to be any smarter than that. Yeah, I think I just wanted to underline your warning there, and yeah, that's it. And the importance of people in AI cannot be underscored. And I do worry sometimes that AI has become this big thing that everyone wants to use, but we don't fully understand it. And we think it's some kind of genius, but in actuality, it's essentially just a predictive model, like any
And
of
it,
us would use in a using any kind of statistical analysis we would do.
and it is it's simply another consumer product. It will tend to give you what you're looking for because that's what the algorithm are built for, you know. So they may kind of approach some kind of reality, but let's not forget about that, really.
Agreed.
Before you get back to Sarah, Andrea?
I just want to flag for folks. I didn't have a chance to fully read the article, but I'm just quickly looking at it. And aside from the predictive stuff, I'm doing some really interesting work with on the use of AI in the criminal justice system, not from a predictive or a risk assessment component or a monitoring component, but how we use AI to better enhance resource navigation and the development of individualized care plans for folks who are transitioning between all of the different organizations, right? So someone who's moving between health sectors and social service sectors. And so how can we use AI to actually develop holistic care plans that follow people through regardless of which organization they're working with? And or how do we use AI to democratize mental health services so that everyone has access to mental health? As well as how do we use it to benefit kind of the collectives who are working towards alternatives to incarceration. So for example, how can we use AI can the police leverage AI to find real-time bed availability in community-based residential programs or treatment programs as an alternative to taking someone to custody? So there's some really cool things happening in this span of AI that I think are really, really positive that a lot of people don't know about because they're really new, especially to Canada, but that work's happening. So kind of, Sarah, as you work on that, as you work on this brief, if you need some information on kind of the positive things outside of monitoring and risk prediction, I can put you in touch with some folks that I'm working with who are doing really cool things with AI right now.
Super, thanks, Andrea. Sarah, you had more comment?
Actually, yeah, and to build on your comments, Andrea, I definitely have seen the positive side of AI being used for rehabilitation as well and transitional uses. So I met a girl who was creating a model similar to ChatGPT, but for women in kind of transitional housing situations, which I thought was really, really neat. Some of that, yeah, I just heard about something really scary with ChatGPT that I wanted to share as well, that there's been a lot of push to add kind of like placement or like product placement within AI. So right now, ChatGPT, I believe, does not have any kind of marketing associated with it. It's purely that like mathematical model. But there's been a lot of push to include marketing and like make recommendations and have paid product placement within AI, which if that happens, that's another thing that is really scary because that's something that we may not know about or that we might know about, but it's just going to be integrated so smoothly that there are some really scary possibilities there. But
and
some really positive things too. Sorry.
and you know that part of the criticism is that a lot of people's work have been copyright, the infringement of copyright of what scientists, researchers have produced is suddenly show up as result an AI, and nobody's getting paid off, and nobody's getting recognized for the work they have done. And yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to have that conversation further.
Mhm.
All right, guys, let's move on. Well, I'm sure we'll be coming back to it as we go through on a monthly basis. So next we have this is a couple of reports that I prepared, and with the Irving's help. So we talked about this at the last PRC, where obviously it was before the current outcome of the election, where the last time the Liberals took power over the Conservatives, which was 2015. The CCGA prepared a report or a discussion paper, I'm not even sure what you would call it, that was sent to the incoming government, basically saying, here are the criminal justice issues that we've seen in the previous 10 years to 2006 when Harper was elected to 2015. And here's the CGA's response to these issues over the course of the previous decade. So I've condensed that into a synopsis, so you've got it with the agenda. And then what I've done is I've created a new one with basically the issues that we've seen since Trudeau took power, and then those issues that have been touched upon by the CCGA. So it's informational for the most part. I don't know. I mean, the party hasn't changed, from the last 10 years to the current party. Do we want to send some iteration of the most recent thing I've generated to the current or the new ministers? Matthew.
I make a motion that we use those two documents to formulate a introduction to the two new ministers in justice and public safety. I think we have to introduce ourselves, number one, and two, I thought that you and Irving did a very nice job of summarizing a lot of our policy positions over a decade. As Irving knows, I've always been a big fan of CCJA going up to the Hill and testifying that this is an important function of this nonprofit to do that. So I would endorse a motion from the PRC that we use those two documents to introduce ourselves to the two new ministers who are relevant to us.
I would suggest, Matthew and everybody else, I would suggest we wait for the speech from the throne. I'd like to see what emphasis, if any, they're going to be putting on criminal justice issues or justice in general issues. And if we can identify certain touchstones, I think we should develop, I can work on a paper that'll speak to those issues that might have some more interest for them. Let me put it to you that way. I can tell you going back 9 years or 8, 9 years ago when we did, I think it's an 8 or 10 pager.
It is.
That, right? That it talked about mandatory minimums, the pardon system, all that kind of stuff, which fell by the wayside in Harper's era. We sent that up to the prime minister. We sent it up to the ministers, blah, 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 blah. We sent it to public safety. I think the best we ever got, if I'm not mistaken, is the minister at the time, I think was Ralph Goodale. He sent us a letter, thank you very much, et cetera, et cetera. And we went back at it sometime thereafter, basically saying, okay, so what are you going to do kind of thing. And, nothing, I'm just off the top of my head, nothing ever happened, right? But all those things. They jiggled around with the pardon system. At the end of the day, they dropped it from $700 to whatever it is now, 50 or 75. There were some elements, mostly through the courts, regarding mandatory minimum sentences, but legislatively, I don't think there was much done. But in any case, I think we have a lot of good material. We worked on it, like I said, 9 years ago, whatever it was. And there's stuff that we've done subsequent, obviously, that could be related. But I would like to see it pointed, focused on what they're planning to do and what's missing. We could point that out too. But just to send kind of a summary of an old document, I think it's going to miss the point.
Well, the
So
second
let's
document,
take the. We'll have a better idea in 2 weeks. We'll hear the speech from the throne, presumably on the 26th. They've got open parliament that way, I think, right?
that's perfectly fine. I think that's a good idea. I just point out though the second document that was prepared wasn't a rehash of the original one. It was from 2015 to now.
Yeah.
So it looks at what's happened in the last 10 years as opposed to the previous. But that's fine.
Right.
Let's wait for the speech from the throne. Let's see if there's any emphasis on anything of justice related that has import for what we do, and then we can tailor our new letter accordingly. Is that a plan? Okay, so let's revisit this then next meeting. We'll have the speech of the throne. It will be history by then, and then we'll take it up again. So, any other comments on this?
So are we meeting in June?
Sure, we should. We probably won't meet in July and August, but we'll discuss that at the next meeting and see what's happening. Next issue on the agenda is just simply an update on the Miscarriage of Justice Review Commissions. So, so at the last meeting, I advised everybody that as of March the 7th, legislation that created that commission became operational. So anybody who wants to apply for an exoneration would now apply, would now do it under the new legislation, but it would still be going to the existing Department of Justice, which is where applications under what was formerly 696(1) of the code went to before. But obviously during the election campaign, the cabinet wasn't sitting, so no appointments were made or in fact advertised to become a commissioner. So there will be anywhere from 5 to 9 persons who will be appointed to sit on the commission. One of them will be a head commissioner, which is a position that is both executive and substantive in the role they play. The commission is going to be centralized in Winnipeg, so which is part of legislation that it not be in Ottawa, so it's not looked as if it's a government body, which it's not. It's an independent body. So at this stage of the game, we'll be looking to, I would think, Minister Fraser to on the Privy Council website post opportunities to apply to the commission. Right, that'll be the next thing that comes up, and whatever the period of time is for that. And then once the commission is appointed, then they can actually get the operational things in place, including the staff. They've got, they've set aside, a good chunk of money, or at least the last government did a good chunk of money to see the commission up and running. We'll see what happens going forward, whether that fits into the budgetary mind of Carney and what have you. We'll have to wait and see. That's where we are. So the commission, the legislation is operational. The criteria to apply for an exoneration is applicable now under the new legislation, but we still don't have a commission itself, right? So applications would go to the Department of Justice in the meantime, and then they convert over to the new commission once that's operational. Any questions about that? Still a hear and wait and see kind of thing to some degree. Okay, moving on to business arising. So we have the 4 parliamentary committees that we review. Obviously, there's nothing that's happened up until today. The committees will be struck, I would think, before our next meeting, and then we'll start to get reports on committee activity. Because Howard has stepped away from his duties at the PRC, we're going to need to find somebody who will step in and do the reporting for the Justice and Human Rights Committee. So I'll follow up with that, and hopefully I can twist somebody's arm between now and our next meeting to have that role filled. And that's it for that. Nothing else really under business arising that I think of. Does anybody have any other new things or items of interest to talk about? Yes, Matthew.
I think that my guess would have been that if Polyev had been elected prime minister, there would have been zero action on the commission you've been talking about, Miles.
No, I agree. I totally agree that it's not a tough on crime agenda kind of thing, right? So you're absolutely right. I think the commission would have probably died a death of whatever. So you're right. So hopefully. There is some priority to it. It was a marquee piece of legislation in the last government. Hopefully, this new government still sees it as an important piece of legislation It's been enacted, it's operational, and they just need to put it in place. But thank goodness that, again, thank goodness it wasn't the Conservatives that were elected in that regard, or many other regards. Anything else, guys?
You asking for a motion to adjourn?
I think I'm leaning that way. Are you making it? Very good. Okay. Great. Okay, I'm sure all in favor. So listen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's springtime. It's moving towards summer, so enjoy the weather. I think I've got it written down. Our next meeting is scheduled for June the 10th.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
everybody
Thank
attending.
you.
It's been a good meeting,
Thank you.
and we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
That's
Bye.
good. See you guys.
Bye.